listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia Griffin. To master a higher frequency for a new state of mind. Once you walked in a forest of splendor in which everything you did and everything you thought was aligned. It is possible at this time to begin to return to the old knowledge. Intuitive healer and manifestor Julia Griffin is here to talk about this unique time in history when all sentient beings, animals, plants, trees, and the earth are intent on creating this change. The wolves awakened her to the most incredible light, which opened gifts and brought knowledge that she longs to share. You are creators, and you are born to be creators of beauty, possibility, and joy. Join Julia on a journey into a beautiful and magical world where amazing possibilities exist. Let us help open the door. The Power of Inspiration and Awakening with Julia Griffin starts right now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Julia Griffin, and you're listening to The Power of Inspiration and Awakening on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour and let us help you experience a higher vibration. Now, let's just say quickly, why do you want a higher vibration? Because that's where all the good things happen. So stay with us. So for those of you who are not familiar with me, I awakened with real wolves. When I met a wolf, it talked to me the same way that you're hearing my voice now. And they taught me to read the energy of the heart. And I could intuitively hear plants, animals, and people. And I became an intuitive healer and writer as a result. And you can find me at onetrueself.com, onetrueself.com. And my very special guest and friend is here today. This is Adrienne, and let me tell you about her. She holds a BA in psychology from Florida State University, and she completed the 4-year education for ministry program at the University of the South. She is an author. I'll tell you 2 or 3 of her books: Soul Adventures, Reframe Your World, Conscious Creation and the New Reality, Reconnecting Soul Guidebook. So you can go on Amazon and find those. And then 2 amazing decks of empowerment cards, which are really fun to play with. What we're going to talk about today is her process of inner speak, which is a way of getting beyond subconscious. And instead of subconscious, I'm going to say the part of us that isn't integrated yet, patterns, into your inner self to find answers and to see life differently and feel it differently. And the cool thing about her cards and the way that she does this is that it tells a story of what happened to take you there. And it's usually karmic from a past or a future lifetime. And then she clears it at the end. And at the very end of it, you get a blessing. And the blessing always feels 5th dimensional. And we're going to do some of that today. And I think you'll really enjoy it. And so Jean says the work is not magic, but the results are magical. And I'll agree with that. When I first really started on my path, she did some sessions for me, and I was going, what in the world? But then I felt so much better, I decided I didn't care, really, how it worked or what it was doing, because it brought such a profound relief. So today we're going to work with, to begin with, some of the current changes in the world. And I'm going to let Jean come in on that, but I think we're all experiencing up and down, and we're working to stay grounded and keep our heart open and understand what's going on. So your take on this, Jean?
Well, I mean, I think that this is the time that all of us has been waiting for. I mean, we've been hearing about the shift of the ages pretty much since 2008. And everybody's like, it's coming now, it's coming now, it's coming now. Well, guess what, folks? It's here now. And it feels like going through childbirth, the transition part of childbirth, which is really rough. And this is why, like you said, you got to stay in higher consciousness, because when things are feeling rough and you sink down into lower levels of vibration, you're in the middle of it, and it is nasty. So
it's a bumpy ride. It's sort of like that old saying, if you want to hitch your wagon to a star, you're going to have a bumpy ride.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Exactly right. But we've asked for this, we've been praying for this, we've been searching for this. So why would we want to turn away from this now? We don't. We want to deal with it, move through it. And the big thing that I'm seeing is that the energies for right now are pushing us to the point that if you're still hanging on to all of your baggage and your lower vibrational stuff, you're being pushed to let it go. Um, and again, and that's a bumpy ride too.
It is a bumpy ride. The good thing about it is every time you do it, and if you only get this for a day, that's cool, that's great. There's this huge relief and a higher spiritual energy when you push through these things. I want to be honest and say they're usually, if you're really on the path, they're going to be replaced by another challenge.
Yeah. Until
But,
you get rid of all the challenges. And
right.
that's really where we are right now. It's time for us to let them all go.
And I don't think people like to admit this. I don't like to admit it to myself, to be completely honest. But all of the patterns that I keep moving into are really things I've experienced my whole life. So we know that's karmic.
Yeah.
And that's one of the cool things about your cards to me is they relieve karmic situations. Will you draw one card for us? Just see what
Well,
it's telling us.
you can't just like do one card. You've got to do like the whole spread. But first, I want to say that the cards are, I made the cards to let everybody else be able to do my work without needing me to be a part of it. Because what my work is all about is really, really deep cleaning. It's like Roto-Rooter to go in there and find the karmic patterns and clean them out. But with the Interspeak cards, there are 7 mini decks inside the big deck, and you pull at least one card, maybe more, from each of the decks. For example, the red cards are where you created the problem for yourself or the pattern. And that might be this lifetime, it might be a past life, it might be an ancestral thing, so forth and so on. The next deck is the orange deck, and these are the setup. This is what happened to you when you made the mistake that created a wound that you internalized inside yourself. The yellow cards are what it did to your soul. And that's really the thing that you have to peel away in order to let go. It's the soul reaction. And then there's a blue deck. Are you getting the pattern here? It's like the colors of the rainbow. There's a blue deck. That's a stuck belief that got internalized at the point where you created the wound. The green deck is the clearing deck. These are the little things that you can do to let go. And your higher self will always pick the exact right card. Your higher self knows everything on all of these cards. Then there's the blessing deck, the one that's Julia's favorite. There's a 7th deck, the indigo deck. These are just places. If it's a past life, then you might want to know, where did that lifetime take place? And so you would pull one of these. And so at the end of the show today, when we figure out everything that we need to let go of, we'll do one of these clearings and let it go for everybody. And then if you watch this later when it's recorded, you get the same level of clearing, because guess what? There is no such thing as time.
Right. So here's an important thing, though, that you're saying is that there is geography. And sometimes it's much easier to clear something if you know where. It's like, if you said, Julia, your whole house would be so clean if you stopped putting books underneath your sofa.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, there's no time, but there is space.
Mm-hmm.
That's really kind of what the 5th dimension adds to 3D reality. 3D was width, height, and length.
Right. Weight, measurement, all that.
Yeah, and the 5th dimension adds to it time and space, but time's not what we think it is. I mean, those of us who wear wristwatches, want to measure it in a linear fashion, but that isn't how it works. It's spiral or circular at best.
Right.
And I don't think anybody really knows how it works. I mean, we have good guesses. We just
No, I just think it's like a grid that's put over things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just like we pretend it's a certain time when it's fall or spring.
And that's why this work works as well as it does, because there is no time. So once you figure out the story, and it's a healing story always, then you can go to that particular point on the spiral, the continuum, whatever you want to call it, where you made the mistake. And right there is where you can rewrite the story and correct the issue.
And I ought to say something here, which is that sometimes they don't seem like such a big deal if you're doing the story and you're looking at it. But here's the thing, anything that causes you emotional pain that inhibits or blocks your inner self, that's serious. It's not nothing. No, it won't matter in 100 years, but it matters right now in this reality. And I don't think people really realize that.
Exactly. And here's the thing is that it wasn't created a minute ago.
Right.
So what happens is our selves, our bodies, and primarily the body, will knows everything that's happening. Your body knows, hears, listens, and sees everything. You might consciously not be aware. So let's just say, for example, you went to a big party and there were 100 people there. And you walked into the room and there was a jealous woman on the other side of the room who looked at you and said, "Oh, Julia, why are you wearing that dress? That
Hmm.
just, and you've gained weight and yeah, yeah, blah, blah, blah."
Right.
You didn't hear it because you were on the other side of the room, but your body did.
I
And
know.
your body has a choice in the moment to go, huh, well, you know what? That's that silly woman's opinion and it's not true.
But it got into your body. And that's the thing that people don't understand. If you're doing intuitive work, where you feel it is in your emotions in your body.
Right.
There are times when you can receive thoughts very clearly, but at the same time, you're having a physical and an emotional response to anything intuitive.
Exactly. And we're supposed to accept everything. We're not necessarily supposed to condone everything, and
Mm.
especially not heinous behavior, but we're supposed to accept that it happened. So, for
Right.
example, let's go back to the party. If your body goes, you know what, that woman, that was just her opinion, and that is not true, and I'm not going to hold on to that, then the body can cast it off and not create a wound. But
Right.
if the
Or
body
if you're at a
does,
higher level, and we're not always at a higher level, you could say, huh, I'm listening to her. She's saying this about everybody who looks decent. Poor
exactly.
thing.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
so if the body chooses to go, mm, she's talking about me, and she thinks I'm ugly, and she thinks I'm fat, it starts to sink in. It happens way out in the edge of your aura in the very beginning because
Right.
it's your aura, like 30, 40 feet out there, that touched that lady's aura that hurt it. But if you let it sink in and it comes farther and farther in, it starts to hit your mental body, and your mental body's where you start thinking about it. Huh,
Right.
what
Particularly if it aligns with something that happened to you as a child.
exactly? And you go into resonance with a problem,
Right.
and so then the mental part of it is, well, God, I guess I do need to lose weight, and maybe I shouldn't have worn this dress, and everybody's going to judge me, and blah, 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 blah,
Hmm.
and or it can go, oh, wait a minute, that's not true.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
It just depends on where you are.
exactly. And if you don't choose the that's not true thing, it's coming in closer and it gets into your emotional body. It's like right here, and you start feeling stuff about it. You
Hmm.
start feeling embarrassed, shame,
Maybe
maybe
I shouldn't have worn this dress.
right,
Yeah.
all that stuff. And you start second guessing yourself. And
Hmm.
if you don't stop there and go, yeah, but you know what? That was her opinion and she said it about everybody, um, it hits the physical body.
Right.
And
And
that's
if
where
anything, you
the
return
problem.
the energy to the person if you can hear what they're saying.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And even if you're not hearing what they're saying, you can just ask your higher self to give back any energies that are not mine
Yeah.
and send them information. Send that person information. And maybe that information is going to be, it says in the big book, don't judge, right?
Right.
So,
Well, I think that's a cool thing about inner speak is it can look like or sound like you're making up some kind of outrageous story,
mhm,
but your inner self comes through all those components and it does actually clear. That's the fun
exactly.
thing about it.
And it goes and
Yeah.
it's permanent.
Hmm.
So When you do the full work, it really is permanent. When you're working with the cards, which you can do for yourself, sometimes it takes 2 or 3 passes through it to get it all. But yeah, it will clear and it will go and you will feel better.
Yeah, and for people who are really way up in this process, whatever patterns you have left from other lifetimes are saying, hi, hello, you didn't really get rid of me.
And you
And
know
I'll
how you
think, yeah,
know? You
yeah. And I'll think, well,
feel it. You
yeah,
start feeling bad. Um,
hmm
maybe you have physical pain, maybe you have issues. Another way the body can get your attention is through loss or lack.
right.
So these are all ways that are trying to say, hello, there's something that needs to be let go of. And why don't we do it?
And a lot of the time it's other people. It's not even you, but it's still in your energy field until you clear it.
Totally. I mean, I would warrant that the majority of the people who listen to this show were born empaths
Yeah,
and they take on lots of other people's stuff.
right. And I was saying that to a client earlier this morning. I said there's a bank of positive energy and a bank of negative energy. And everything you do, it's either going into one or the other. So let's try for 30% of the time you're aware of the bank. But I gave a example. I have a good friend and she's a wonderful person, but for whatever reason, if I'm around her, I have more bills and less abundance. And I said, I just can't afford it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's another piece of the energy today. We're being called to make choices about what's important to us. And for me, that's showing up as who do I want to hang around with?
right.
You
And it
know?
doesn't mean they're not good people or that they don't have wonderful things about them. It's just that your energy fields are not in alignment.
And if it's not feeling good for me, then I need to move on. I mean, I've had this saying for a long, long time. It's kind of one of my hallmarks is if it's easy for me, it's right for me. And when a relationship with another person or person starts not being easy, I know that it's time for me to close that door.
Right. And I thought of a story that fits in with this. I was with someone who had mentored me, and she had a friend who would do blood test. And while the friend was doing this very, very complicated blood test, we would look at people's past lives. And one person had this strange thing show up in her blood. And at the same time, her shoulder hurt. And my friend said, an Indian shot you with a poison arrow in another lifetime, delete and uncreate. And so she said, wait 15 minutes. And she did the blood test again. It was gone.
Exactly. And and right now we're being presented with so many resources like that. And I can give you a personal example. So 3 years ago, well, 2 years ago, really, I went through treatment for cancer. And I had to have a lot of chemotherapy. And I am cancer free. And, my oncologist says I'm pronouncing you healed. Good. Okay. So as time has gone on over the last 2 years, I've been starting to feel wonkier and wonkier and getting tired or easier and lightheaded when I exert, things like that. So I finally got an appointment with a cardiologist and I said, what is going on here? And he said, well, it looks like, oh, excuse me, it looks like chemotherapy has damaged your heart. And this was like last week, okay? So this is very fresh. And has scheduled a bunch of tests. He did one test where he saw that there was heart damage. Another one is a stress test that they're going to do with nuclear medicine, and I have to wear a monitor for a month, etc. So today they called me and they said, okay, your stress test is scheduled, and it's going to be September the 27th. And I'm
Mm,
like, what? And then I got it. I'm being given a lot of time to take care of this before I have to deal with it through allopathic medicine.
right.
And I did a session on it. And the first thing that came up, because I wanted to heal my broken heart, right? It was an ancestral thing. I had a great, great, great grandmother who died on the Trail of Tears.
And
And
her
I
heart was
know that was in
broken.
my family history. She was the source of the heart problem. And what happened to her, according to our family history stuff, is that they had to march from Georgia on the Trail of Tears, and she got as far as Arkansas. And they were still marching, but she and her husband were getting more and more and more worn down
Right.
and falling apart, etc. And she saw a cabin off in the distance with a light on, and she took my great 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 grandmother and she said, "Run, go make those people in that cabin take you in, bang on the door until they do. If you stay with us, we're going to die and you're going to die too. And we don't want that." And so I've known this story all along, but what came up through the inner speak process for me yesterday was that broke her heart. It wasn't being raped by soldiers and torn out of her house and forced to march. It was having to send her daughter away that broke her
Yeah.
heart.
And the
So,
land, I can feel the loss of the land that she loved.
oh yeah, and I ended up living on that land. That
Right.
was the house I was guided to buy in Blairsville.
Hmm.
So yeah.
And for those of you who are not familiar with the South, most of us, like I have a great great grandmother who was a full-blooded Cherokee, and we have that Native American, and it makes us love the land. And people are always saying, "Why do you stay in the South?" Well, there's your answer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And some of it goes back deeper than that. I mean, I was so drawn to move to Atlanta for no good reason, but I ended up manifesting a job in Atlanta, left a marriage, moved up there. And what I found out through many years of living in Atlanta was that that's where people have to go to burn off a lot of Atlantean karma, because a
Yeah,
lot
that
of
makes
the
sense.
generator crystals are inside Stone Mountain.
Yeah, it really makes sense because I thought about Atlantis a whole lot when I lived there, and I thought right before we started talking, I never think about it anymore.
No,
I
me either.
don't feel any karma or any fear or anything from Atlantis.
No, but I did so many sessions where that stuff came up, during the time that I lived there. And then one day, I guess I was done
Yeah.
and I bought that cabin up in the mountains, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I remember forever ago, Donovan came to Atlanta, and he had the song about Atlantis, but he changed it to Atlanta when he
Right.
was singing it.
Yeah.
What? And he was Irish, so that's how strong the feeling was.
Yeah. But who knows how many Atlantean lifetimes he had,
I know.
you know?
It's all very interesting and it's all wrapped together. I think you're fine though, because psychically I usually see blue right here if
Mhm.
someone has a serious heart problem, and I'm not seeing that.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you can do it.
I think I can too. I mean, and it took that lady calling me this morning and scheduling something that far out for me to realize there's always a reason. I mean, the divine plan is amazing. And, because I do work to keep my vibration high, I recognized it and I was like, oh man, okay, I'm being given some time to fix this before they want to do surgery or stents or whatever the heck they do these days. I don't know. Um, and
Well, you'll have a better perspective on it by then.
yeah,
Plus, I really think, because I've had them and they've gone away, that heart problems have to do with opening your heart.
hmm yeah,
Like something hurts you so much or something is so difficult to overcome that you start to shut your heart down. But if you're working on your heart, your energy and your attention is there all the time. So you're automatically opening it.
totally. And that brings up another thought for me too, is that there's only one of us here. You know, you're part of my reality and I'm part of yours, but there's just one person. So I haven't done enough sessions on this yet to know, but there's a possibility that I'm the reincarnation of that woman who died on the Trail of Tears and had a broken heart.
Yeah, I was my great great grandmother on a different grandmother.
hmm I mean, I certainly have found through sessions that I'm the reincarnation of my father's father, my grandfather, which
Hmm.
made so much sense when I figured that
Well,
out.
I think that's one thing that people really miss, good or bad. You reincarnate into your family for a reason.
hmm we travel in a very small soul group,
Circle.
you know,
Yeah.
and we
And
do it
because I have
over
a
and
good friend, and we were talking one time that we had probably met at least 200 or 300 people together. And we ended up being really good friends and having one mutual friend. And she said, "Why is that?" And I didn't know, but it just popped through me. And that was that we knew each other in a past lifetime. And I think that our really deep friendships and the people that we stay in connection with, we already know.
I mean, I feel very sure that you and I have had many lifetimes
I
together.
know. That's what I'm trying to say. And so lately I've been telling people, if you want more people in your life, then ask for people that you have positive past lifetimes with. Let's don't waste the time trying to sift through the rest.
Right. Exactly.
So I guess it's time for us to go to break. I've been talking with Adrienne about inner speak, a method of getting into higher vibrations, clearing your karmic past, and becoming present in the moment. So if you would like to continue to raise your vibrations, we'll be right back after break. Stay with us. Welcome back. I'm Julia Griffin, and you're listening to The Power of Inspiration and Awakening on Transformation Talk Radio. I'm with Adrienne today, and we're talking about inner speak, a cool method of clearing karma and moving up into the awakening vortex. I guess we could call it a vortex. So stay with us for the next half hour and learn more. So, the first thing I wanted to ask is, what are some good ways of dealing with negative energy? You know how it will be so heavy some days
So
and it makes you feel tired.
totally. And when you feel that, the first question to ask is this mine? Yeah. And usually it's not. And so the second thing is to just ask your higher self to gather up whatever energy you've taken on that's making you feel puny and send it back where it came from. That's simple. But every time you send any energy back, you need to send something along with it, and that's going to be information. So, one of my theories is that the one thing other people want from you, they don't really necessarily want your money or your gifts or your house or your car. They just want information.
And
And so
energy.
and energy, yeah, but energy is information. And
Hmm.
so if you send them what they're looking for, if you send them energy that has information in it that will help them, it's almost kind of like giving a kid a lollipop to shut them up, you know?
Right.
And they'll go away and leave you alone.
Or I'm turning on the television for you. One of the things that I noticed about is, on our planet, we have lower mass consciousness with emotions.
Mhm.
And when something happens in the outer world that brings people down emotionally, it's part of that really heavy, tired energy. So I keep saying, universe, delete and uncreate my connection to mass consciousness and realign me with my inner self.
But we have a part in that too. And that involves turning the darn TV off. Don't read
Hmm.
the newspaper. Don't buy People magazine. You know, um, stay in your own space and deal with the positive stuff, which is going to be your work to raise your consciousness. Because every time you engage with the outer world, it's the lowest common denominator. So
Hmm.
it will never bring you higher, but it will bring you down.
And the reality that we need to be working with is our own reality. Like as soon as we're a little bit freed from that, go ahead and imagine what we want to experience and how we want to experience it.
Your imagination and your intention is so powerful. And the thing that most people forget is that with every thought you think, you are creating a thing, whether it's what you want or what you don't want.
And
So,
also, we visualize, and people are not aware of that because I say that all the time. What if you left your keys in the car? Well, you immediately get a picture of the inside of your car and your keys.
yeah,
And people
totally.
don't even know that that's how they move through time and space.
Exactly. So it's just so important to kind of scrub your thoughts constantly. And even more important than that is scrub your words. Watch what comes out of your mouth. Because if you say it, then you've created that to be so. I mean, it sounds so innocent to say, "Ah, I'm so stupid. Counsel clear." You
But
know?
how many people have we known that you hear them talking about each other and their relationship in a derogatory way, and within a year they're divorced and even more unhappy?
Totally. And, the masters throughout the ages have told us this over and over and over again. Um, and we just don't listen, or we read it and we go, and don't think it really applies to us. One of the things that can bring your energy down faster than just about anything else is gossiping, talking smack about somebody else. It
Yeah.
doesn't hurt them,
I have
but
a
it
friend, and
lowers
she
your
and her
vibration.
husband, I would say, have a very loving relationship, which you don't see very often. And I
Right?
said to her one time, I said, I have never heard you say a single negative thing about your husband. And she laughed and she said, Oh, Julia, she said, you know, he's not perfect and he gets on my nerves. She said, every man does that. But she said, you can never have a happy marriage if you talk about the other person to other people.
That's right. That's completely true. Um, but even in the day-to-day thing, if you talk about somebody else, you know, if you're complaining or criticizing or judging, it's dropping your vibration. It's hurting you.
No, it's different than knowing the truth that someone is imposing on your energy field or that they're doing something energetically to you. But what I say about that is if you want to talk about that, find somebody who understands energy. Don't
Right.
just broadcast it to everyone.
And to everyone you come, and because we tend to do this, and we tend to tell everybody we see, this person, that person, the other person, and the more we talk about it, I mean, even talking about illness,
Yeah.
I just did. But I think I put a positive spin on how I'm looking at that. But even talking about illness makes it more cemented. It makes it more
Hmm.
concrete. So
Because people project that on you. They don't mean to.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. Sometimes they do, but
Sometimes they do. Well, see, that's what I'm saying. That's the fine line
yeah,
between what you can say, like you might call me and say, I really feel worse after I talk to this person about my health. I'd have to say, well, then don't talk to them about your health.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the one thing that I find, because I work with people every day, and doing the inner speak work, and the one thing that I find that's kind of like a common denominator is lack of forgiveness. That's really what creates those wounds to begin with. It's something that happened that you got into judgment about and didn't let it go. And that could be that you need to forgive it or you just need to forget about it or whatever. Um, but
Well, I'm
it's
going to say something about lower vibrations because it was irritating me, people that could go up but didn't. And so
uh
I wanted to know why they were staying down. And what I got is that they're pretty or adept or smart or they deal well with the lower reality. They don't want to go up into a higher reality where they might be disconcerted or vulnerable or afraid.
right. Yeah.
And that gave me huge energy to forgive that because it scares me sometimes. It's just I guess I'm in the habit of doing it now.
Uh-huh. Exactly. Well, it's kind of like wanting to stay in the third grade because you had such a good time in the third grade, and your teacher was so sweet and all that. But if you stayed in the third grade forever, you'd never accomplish anything. You would never learn the things that you were going to learn in the fourth, fifth, sixth, 10th, 11th, 12th,
Yeah, and I
whatever.
was thinking about it. My grandparents used to take my mother and all of us to the beach near Charleston, and we would stay for 2 weeks. And we had such a good time, and we fussed so about leaving. The next time we had it for a month, and that was so too long.
Yeah,
Like 3 or 4 more days were perfect, so we never did that again.
right?
But my grandmother kept saying, "This is what they said they wanted, and nobody is enjoying it."
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So it's just really important to consciously create the things that you really want in your life. And you can do that through visualizations, you can do that through writing, and you can do that through talking about it.
Right.
Really the
It's just
step.
putting your consciousness on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I am curious about this. What do you think is the best way to navigate relationships? Because, like, for example, I'm very close to my children, but right now, particularly when the energy is changing, they feel very upset.
Okay. Well, one thing that just jumps right out at me is that we can't fix anybody else. And so if we begin to try to help our kids or our relationship, our lover, whatever, a couple of things happen. The first is, unless they ask for it, they're going to push it back at you.
Hmm.
And even if you're just doing energy work,
Right,
not talking to them, they'll zip it back at you, and it hurts when it comes back.
right.
But if they come at you with words because you violated their free will unwittingly, you did it out of love, you're wanting to help. No. And what I'm finding the most successful thing for me is to be what I want them to be, to model for them what works for me, and show them how to behave
Hmm.
without telling them.
Right.
Because
Or you can do it psychically. Like I
totally,
knew my daughter really needed a job because she's too smart to stay home all the time. And so I just sent her a message that some job that she really loved would come to her. And if she really wanted it, she should act on it. And that only took about 3 months. But if I had said, you need to get a job, she never could have
oh
heard
yeah,
me.
she wouldn't have done it.
Mm-mm.
And then she would have probably been mean to you because she thought you were judging her as less than because you told her
Right.
that
You need a job. Something's the matter with you. You should have a job. Yeah.
exactly. So it's just really important to not interfere in other people's free will, but to give them examples of how they can be better for themselves or be happier for themselves.
Right.
So that's a big piece of it, in my opinion.
Hmm. I think the other thing is I try not to talk to them about any of it when I'm really tired or working a lot. I'll say, I'm not completely together and I may not hear you correctly. Give me some time to get myself in a good place and I can listen better.
Totally. Totally. Yeah.
Because there's this tendency with people you love when you're really too tired to go over it with them of thinking you love them, so you should do it.
And this leads me to a whole nother different story that kind of ties back to inner speak. But it's that level of loyalty and love that causes us to run the karma of our ancestors. We love them because they're our family. Maybe even we didn't know them, because it
Right.
could be that far back. But at some unconscious level, we buy into their schmuck and we start trying to fix it, and it was never ours to fix. And what does it
Right.
do? It really derails our personal life.
Hmm. Because that's the point when you're not tired, you can hear blah, 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 and you don't care. You're just like, well, I'll be through with that in a minute. But if you're really tired, you start to react to it.
Exactly, exactly. You're vulnerable.
You fall into the puddle.
And what happens when we get messed up into somebody else's trying to fix thing, we get energetically entangled with them.
Right.
And we start running their karma. And so I just talked about the ancestral piece of that, but that can happen with a friend. That
Yeah.
can happen with mass consciousness, people you don't even know. And you don't want to be running karma that doesn't belong to you. It's hard enough to deal with the stuff you own, you
Right.
know?
It's true.
Yeah. So give it back. Ask your higher self to locate all the little nuggets that you've taken on and give it back where it belongs with information.
Yeah, and I'm going to express an opinion that you'll understand, but I don't think it's going to be popular. Part of what's going on is that if you awaken, you feel everything more
Yes.
physically, emotionally, mentally, all those things.
Well, it's because your awareness is heightened. The higher your
Hmm.
vibration is, the bigger your picture gets.
And the more your body feels.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Because when we're wandering around with a job description of rock, which is a very valid job description, somebody's got to anchor energy on planet Earth, you know.
Right.
I don't want it to be me, but um, so when you're running around with that, you're not sensitive, you're not aware. And
Hmm.
as you increase your vibration, your sensitivity grows, and it grows incrementally. So you become more aware because the truth is we have access to everything that's ever happened. It's in our
Right.
DNA. It's right. It's like the hard drive on the computer, but it's the big hard drive for all of us, and it's all accessible through our DNA. So it's there, and you can feel it.
Well, a good example is I could tell you I was influenced by my great grandmother. You were influenced by your great great grandmother.
Yeah.
But there's a difference when you know you've spent past lives with them and you've traveled through time with them, and that's a huge difference in consciousness. But it was always there. It wasn't like it wasn't there.
Well, the big rule is about not going into judgment. And something that I heard a long, long time ago that made so much sense to me was that, when we pass from this reality and we go to the other side, and we're sitting around with our soul family and talking about the experience that we had when we were here on planet Earth, we don't talk about how much money we made, how many fancy cars we drove. The things that we talk about, I believe, are, do you know, Julia, do you remember that time when I stole your husband so that you could learn how to deal with loss in a healthy manner? And do you remember that time that I was driving drunk and I ran over the kid? You know, it's
Or it
those,
can be the other side of that. Because when my father died and I could feel him go into the light, he said, "Oh, Julia," he said, "I did so much better than I thought I did."
exactly, exactly. Yeah, but it has nothing to do with the things that we,
No, it
nothing,
doesn't have anything to do with what happened, is that he kept his soul presence
right.
throughout his life. That's what was being measured, not his actions.
Yeah,
That all the times he could have given up or he could have stopped trying for that, he didn't.
because we're human beings. We're here
Hmm.
to be some unique aspect of the creator that nobody else can be. Because I can't be your stuff and you
No,
can't be my stuff. But it's very important for me to hold my energy, to be my energy, and to allow other people to see my true energy,
right.
because that's the only way that they're going to see that piece of the creator,
Well,
whoever the
that's all that there is on a spiritual level, is
exactly,
if you're being yourself or you're not.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what it comes down to. And that's the cool thing about inner speak and inner work is that it all leads to understanding more of who you are and what you want to do. It's like one day I woke up really early and I had so much to do, and I heard what you really want to do is be in the garden. So I did it for an hour, which normally I would have hopped up and started writing or made a list of what I had to do that day. And it gave me so much joy and beauty. And I thought, okay, I guess I'm balancing now because neither side of me will rewrite the other one now.
Right, totally. So would you like to do a clearing using the cards to show people, and not just show
Yeah,
people, but this will impact everybody who watches it in a
yeah,
positive
let's do
way?
it.
Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
why don't we do a clearing around staying in your truth and the blocks that are keeping you from being in your truth in this turbulent time of shift that we're going through?
Perfect.
Okay,
So
so
what?
just let me just shuffle up the red cards and let's just all take a moment and surrender to spirit and ask for help. Okay, so I'm going to pick one red card. Actually, I'm going to let you pick the red card. I'm going to hold them up and you tell me when to stop.
Stop.
This one or this one?
That the one on, yeah, this one.
Okay. Huh, it says psychic attack.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's pick another one so we get a little bit more clarity on that. You
Okay.
tell me when to
The
stop.
one on the end, right where your finger is, right there.
Okay, this is something that we created for ourselves during gestation, conception, or birth. So
Hmm.
let me muscle test to see, was it conception? Was it gestation? This is a pattern that we picked up for ourselves when we were in our mother's wombs. We started allowing other energies, because the fetus is a sentient being, and
Right.
everything that's happening outside the mother's belly, it's hearing it, it's feeling it, it's knowing it's there. So this is an old pattern from gestation. So let's see exactly what happened. The orange cards are the setup. So let's just do the same thing. You tell me when to stop.
Okay. That one, right there.
We're going to pick two of them.
Okay.
All right. So let me make them neat again.
You pick that one.
Okay. This one.
Hmm.
Okay. So let me read them. The first one says arranged or no love marriage. And the second one says betrayal, lying, or being lied to. So the arranged or the no love marriage could be the relationship, the soul and the body in the womb. It could be the relationship between the baby and the outside world and the mom, or maybe the parents were in an arranged or a no love marriage.
Mhm.
And then the betrayal, lying, or lied to is all about how the baby interpreted what happened. Because, until you're about 5 years old, your limbic brain isn't developed enough for you to be able to tell what's real and what's not real. So
Right.
this baby's like an information sponge.
I heard that. It's like I thought there would be more love when I got here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's like reading the planet and going, nope, it's not turned on.
Okay, let's look at the yellow card. So this is what happened to our soul in our mother's womb. So you tell me when to stop.
Stop there.
It said our ability to be in relationship has been disrupted. So we have a hard time dealing with other people.
Makes sense.
And there's a stuck belief. The blue card will be the stuck belief that we internalized when we were not even born yet. You pick it.
The one on the far end.
This one?
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
I can't have what I want.
There you go.
Yep. Okay. Let's clear this mess.
Yeah.
So here are our green cards. How about you pick one and then I'll pick one and then you can pick one.
Perfect.
We'll just kind of go through it like that. So I'm going to hold them up and let you tell me which card.
There. The fourth one.
Okay.
There we go.
The first thing it says, so you don't think I'm lying, forgive all concern. So
That's too perfect.
yeah, let's just take a moment and go back in time, go back inside your mother's womb and forgive. Forgive your mother, forgive your father, forgive anything that was going on outside of the womb. Forgive Creator God for sending you into this mess. And anything else. And forgive yourself. Because there's a lot of self-judgment about, what was I thinking? Why did I do this?
Yeah.
I want to just abdicate this one. Okay, and let's pick another one. This one I'll pick. Let's see. Having a hard time keeping them organized today. It's this one right here. Might be hard to read, but it's go find yourself in the womb and give yourself space to vent your anger, your guilt, your shame, and your fear, any negative emotions, so that all that's left is love when you're done venting. So let that baby have a hissy fit and just get rid of all of it. So that we're only coming in with love. Okay, now I'm going to let you pick one. Oops, I just
There it is. It fell out. Just take the one that fell out.
Okay. All righty. It says to kneel and surrender to spirit and ask that all negativity and all problems be cleansed away from you fully.
I can hear like thousands of voices saying, I thought it would be better here than it is.
Yeah. I thought it was going to be easy.
Yeah.
This was supposed to be like Disneyland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This was supposed to be the good lifetime that I fought so hard to get into, and now it's not like that.
Well, here's the mistake that a lot of us made, that we heard that we were getting to go to the planet of free will. Well,
Yeah.
free will gives you freedom to create your worst nightmare. So let's draw some blessings.
Yeah, because we've just got a couple minutes left. Yeah.
Yeah, so you tell me which one.
That one.
First blessing is union. and the acceptance of love from ourselves, from Creator God, from a partner, from our family. And I'm going to pick this one, which says release from overwhelm. And we get 3, so I'm going to let you pick.
That one.
The return of your authority, power, and confidence.
There we go. Perfect.
Yeah, so it's gratitude that owns every clearing. So just take a moment now, give thanks. Give thanks to Creator God, your angels, teachers, guides. Give thanks to your higher self. Give thanks to your body and your body's higher self and your team. And I ask that all of our reference points and grids are updated. I ask for a balancing and a stabilization of our fields and all systems, levels, and components of our being. And let's just wrap ourselves up in sheets of rainbow light, gently sealing all this in to whatever degree is appropriate.
Okay, so that was so fun. And everybody needs to know, because we're running out of time, that Jean is happy to do this, or you can buy her cards online. And you can just type Jean Adrienne Innerspeak into Google and you'll get right there, but give them your website name.
It's JeAnadrienne.com.
Okay. And we've got that. And you know where to find me on One True Self. I'm doing awakening classes now, which are a 9-month experience that I only do once a year. So if you're interested, get in touch with me at onetrueself@gmail.com. And thank you, everyone who's with us. And thank you, Jean. Fun experience. Namaste.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia Griffin to master a higher frequency for a new state of mind. Join us next time as Julia takes us deeper into the memory of the moments of light where transcendence and enlightenment emerge. The memory of the jewel of consciousness is always lived within you to tap into waves of energy and create huge changes by imagining the beauty of the vision and desires that are hidden in the heart. Learn to find your way back to nature, beauty, and your own heart, which holds the secrets of your existence and future. To discover more about Julia's adventures, animal communication, and the teachings she brings to every show, visit onetrueself.com. That's onetrueself.com. That's ONE, trueself.com.